This
Good evening. I'd
conference
like
will
to call
now
to
be
order the City
recorded.
of Haslet's Charter Commission meeting. Today's date is Wednesday, April 1st, 2026. The time is 7 p.m., and we do have a quorum present. We do not have any citizens in the room for citizen participations, but we will begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, couple items of community interest. All the city offices are going to be closed on Friday, April 3rd. That's an observance of Good Friday. And then the City of Haslet's general election is going to be held on Saturday, May 2nd from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that is for the purpose of electing city council members for place 1, 3, and 5. And you can find out more about that on the election page. Moving on, we got agenda item number 4, which is our consent agenda, which is our minutes from our last meeting. If anybody sees any revisions that are needed for those minutes, let's discuss those. If not, we can make a motion to accept the minutes as written. And remember, if you would turn on your mic before you speak, that way we do get the recording.
Chairman, I make a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay, motion to accept is written. It's been seconded. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Yep, Marty. All right, moving on. Agenda item 5 is review the final content of the bylaws. So at the conclusion of our last meeting, we had finalized the draft that we wanted to incorporate for our bylaws. We voted on those bylaws. You have that document sitting next to you, I believe, printed out. So I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look through that before we came to this evening, but if we find anything in these bylaws, this is a living document. We can amend it as needed. But I'll just give you guys a minute to think about whether or not this is an accurate reflection of what we discussed. So this is a compilation of the notes that I took as we went through each and every item, and then also Katrina kept notes along the way, and then we confirmed that we have the document that we have in front of us that captures the minutes that we had taken. Okay. Thank you.
One question I had, at the recent council meeting, they spoke about some changes to the public meeting card. I don't know if that would apply to our meetings as well. I believe they did say it would apply to the boards.
Regarding the public comment cards?
Yeah.
Was it to put a time limit on the comment period?
Yes.
Yes, it probably would. Having chaired the Planning and Zoning Commission for as long as I have tried to give people the latitude to, say everything they want to say, but also be mindful how many other people want to speak and, how long it's taking up of our meeting. And are they saying something new and relevant and different than what they'd already said previously? So I do like to give a little bit of latitude there, but it is good to have a target.
One other question. They also allowed comments by anyone, even if they were not Haslet citizens of the city. I don't know if that's something, because of what this charter is doing, that it's for the city of Haslet, if that would apply to us as well.
Yeah, so let's take a look at our bylaws, because we actually made a reference to the community outreach section, I believe.
Yeah, that's on page 6, Article 8, correct? Community outreach.
Yeah, but there was another section also that we said the citizens, and I forget.
5 meetings, section 5.
Section 5, thank you.
It does say City of Haslet residents.
Yeah, public participation is by, Haslet residents.
Okay. And
So-
we can keep it that way because it's our bylaws.
Correct.
Okay,
And this is a city business only, all right?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I just wanted to
Unless,
make sure
unless
that
we're
was
advised differently, well, that's the direction we will follow.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or observations about the bylaws that we adopted? Okay, then we'll move on and we will go to review the draft work from our elections subcommittee. Yes, please. Okay,
So Marilyn, Todd, and I we met twice to determine Article 7 for the elections. The outline that we followed, and you'll see some things highlighted in yellow, and Todd will talk to that in a minute. We did some research through several different cities' charters. We looked at Southlake, we looked at Justin, we looked at Keller, we looked at Princeton, so we looked at several different ones. This is kind of a lot more simple and straightforward than most of those were, less wordy. Most of the time you'll see we deferred to the election code when there was, something we needed to say more specifically, we did. But the outline that we had was, what was the law governing us, the election authority, election dates, and then you'll see this highlight in yellow. We'll talk about that in a minute, why we included that. And then filing for candidacy, ballot form and preparation, voting procedures, tabulation and canvassing, majority requirement and runoff elections, oath of office, how special elections would be conducted, the recall of elected officials, vacancies, initiative and referendum, which was on our list to include, but we'll talk about that as well, campaign finance and ethics, and then severability and compliance. So those were all the sections that
Okay.
we included.
So can you just walk us through how what the subcommittee process was to, compare and contrast the different cities' content, how you came to determinations that this was the best approach for the city of Haslet?
Well, we try to look at current charters, more current, that would be more up to date, which would apply to us. We looked at the different charters, then we came together and we went through each category and we did the pros and cons of each category. We also researched the legality of some of them and the language of them also. Then we did a consolidation of several of them together, and then what we thought would apply best for Haslet.
Okay,
Does that?
I think the things we saw in the differences is some cities took a very straightforward, we're gonna follow the state rules and we're gonna mimic that. Southlake is a good example of that. Justin had a incredibly detailed thing where they spelled out every single little line, and there was no vagueness in it at all, but it was a very, very lengthy document that seemed very rigid. And so we tried to find a happy medium between those two things where we had some flexibility to allow some discussion, and to also give us the freedom to be a little more creative about our document as opposed to being so ironclad. We thought Justin's was really great, but it was very, very, very detailed.
Okay.
And,
So could we walk through each section, talk, and then get a subcommittee perspective on why means, so that for those who weren't part of your discussions, we can have an understanding as we determine whether we support the approach or we want to go a different direction? Would that be possible?
That's fair. Yeah, you want to start,
Okay.
Marilyn? Or just, you know?
Well, the first thing, we wanted to make sure that we were stating that we were following the Constitution of the state of Texas and also the Texas Election Code. So in each category, we would reference with respect to the Texas Election Code, so we wouldn't be in any legality issues on what's going on, because that's constantly changing also. Also, 7.02 election authority is pretty straightforward. The city secretary, she serves as the chief election official of the city. And then the city council contracts each election cycle with the county elections administrator, and they're really the ones that administer the elections, not the city independently. The city council does have the authority to call special elections in accordance with the charter and a Texas election code. And you asked, okay, well, what's a special election? Well, maybe it's a runoff election, or maybe we had a disaster, catastrophe occur in our city and we need more funding. So the state of Texas does require you, if you're going to issue a bond, and it has to go before a vote, then that would be like a special election, something like that. Say we had a flood. I don't think that's going to happen here. More of a tornado or destroy things, and we have to rebuild our infrastructure, but we don't have the money to do that. We need a bond election, so we would have to call a special election. And the city council would have the authority to do that sort of thing.
Chair, just to have a question back to your 701 quick, Marilyn, real quick. I know that we're referring many times back to the state of Texas Constitution and Texas Election Code, but do we have to say as amended through a date? Because you could have a potential conflict.
I think that's where we didn't notice that on any of the other charters.
I noticed that too, but it just made me wonder.
And I think that when this should all go through our city attorney, and so I think he would be the one to maybe state if that has to happen.
Okay, I just would, in the potential conflict, if there's ever was a conflict.
You know, I did investigate where we were going to have legal conflicts, and that didn't seem to be one of them that popped up.
A simple way to address that would be to just start it out at all times, all city Haslet, so put a couple of words in the front, and then shall be conducted in accordance with the then current Constitution and laws of the state of Texas.
At all.
Well, I think part of the reason it's not structured that way in any other charter we saw is that there's only one constitution and one election code today.
But they amend those.
They do amend them, but whatever's current today is the only one. There's not two.
Yeah. Agreed,
That's
but
why they
if
do
we
that,
had
yeah.
something else that we had written in here, and then all of a sudden something came through the state, and they amended theirs, and now it has in conflict with the state from what
Yeah.
we already have in there, I wouldn't want something to sort of say, hey, this is where this was written to, and it could be amended.
Can we just use the word current?
That's what I was saying,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, that's
We could-
a simple solution.
Yeah.
With the current constitution, you want the current? The current
Yeah.
constitution and laws? Okay.
Marilyn,
Just- yeah.
I have a question as well. I like how the subcommittee's taking the approach of making sure it's in accordance with the Constitution and state laws of Texas. And just for clarification, in the election dates under section 7.03, if there is a runoff election, it would correspond with any other runoff elections that are in that election process, right?
Right, it
So that
has,
there's not a cost of a special election or runoff just for Haslet.
right, it has to be by the state, whatever the state
Yes.
election codes are. And let me also add, in addition to that, like whenever the legislature passes recent year now, that if you have a bond issue, anything to do with money that's going to increase the tax basis, it has to be in a general election in November.
Yes, okay, perfect. The reason I bring it up is there's a town out in West Texas, their charter commission didn't pay attention to that, and they got stung with the cost of some runoff elections they weren't planning on. We're synchronized here, so my compliments to the subcommittee, that's very good.
Yep.
Okay, so so you got ahead of me there. So we're following the election dates, and those are dictated by the state. We don't deviate from that. All right.
Just to be clear, because we're going to make these changes, including the Texas election code as amended, is that what we're also adding to this section?
No, with the current.
So we're going to say with the current constitution and laws of the state of Texas. Is that all we're doing? Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Todd, I think you can take it
So
from on the next one.
The sections that are highlighted are things that appeared under this segment in lots of other city charters, but we actually have them carved out a little bit under Article 3, City Council. And we went ahead and addressed, just because it was in the topics that we were looking at and in the documents we're looking at, we came up with our own ideas. And I think when we form a committee for Article 3, City Council, that committee should include at least one or two members from our subcommittee because of the tie-in between the two sections. I think it's dovetailed very carefully, and I think that will help us. That's just a suggestion that we came up with, may help us not reproduce or overlap a lot of things that may be in conflict. Just the thought process of how we came up with some of these things is already written down here, but it's going to have to be drafted through our framework in another subcommittee. So I would just suggest when we do appoint people to that subcommittee that we include one or two members of this committee in that subcommittee also.
Right, because it would have to align. And, you know, we thought that to prepare for an election or have information about elections, you also would have to define how those elections happened, like who ran in which election, which is why we included it here as a thought. But again, it would have to align with more detail that would be written, as
Yep.
Todd said, in section or in Article 3.
And I don't know when the time to discuss that. I think it's going to be when we discuss Article 3. But I think if you look at other city charters, this part is included under this section, and they're dovetailed closely together.
Yeah, and one of those big points within that section is going to be whether we break the city into districts or if we just have all members elected at large.
Yes, and we spent a good bit of time talking about that, and I think, you know, our general consensus was it was a districted system that's going to serve the city better, but that's just 3 people on the committee.
So could
Yeah.
we had some similar conversations. Would you mind just diving into that a little bit? Because we went a different direction you did, so that's why I'm curious.
Yeah.
I don't speak for me. I'm curious. You guys probably are too.
Yeah, we went back and forth on it. I think, in general, our thought process was that the at-large thing tends to concentrate people from one neighborhood or one group of friends that run together, and we end up with a small 3 or 4 people that are from a very concentrated area of the city. And we thought representation may include more people, or maybe even get more people involved if we were able to district it to some degree, and then have several at-large members as well as districted members. And that was just our consensus when we looked at the options. There's obviously there's a lot more discussion to be had relative to that.
We thought that it would give more people opportunity, that if there was districts, then people would perhaps tend to actually run for council because they weren't necessarily running against just one kind of neighborhood or group, that it would be their neighborhood that would, or their neighborhoods that would know of them and the candidates that were running, and that would serve that neighborhood better than perhaps if there was no representation from.
And
With,
part of-
with that though, wouldn't you have to have a fallback position? Because we are landlocked and we're gonna have no more than 8 to 10,000 residents for Haslet. So if you district it, you're gonna have a fallback position if there is nobody that wants to run in that district.
Correct.
I think that's a good point.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I would prefer at large, mainly so we hopefully get, the cream rises to the top and we get the best people that we can possibly get. Restricting it to one person from each area, or have each area represented. I don't think that's a bad idea, but I would prefer,
Well, you would still have 2 people at large. That we're including 2 people at large.
So you're saying it would be a 7-member city council?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what we were
Five
thinking.
Or
plus
2 or 3 at large, or, Haslet's very divided in their neighborhoods, and each neighborhood, Laterra has different concerns than Hugh White does, or Caraway. Totally different.
a lot of this come up recently.
Right, and so they're totally different, and so we felt like having a representative and then being encouraged to run.
I can see.
But then you would have a couple, 2 or 3, or however it would be, fall out, run at large also. And I think that's where you would get rising to the cream of the crop.
And we wanted to avoid having also the potential where they'd have to recuse themselves. If you think about some of the things that might come before council, right now we have 3 people on council that are from the same neighborhood. And there could be issues come up that could be a challenge. So we felt that distributing this differently would avoid those kinds of conflicts.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but I myself would prefer to have that happen naturally.
Yeah, I think part of our logic too is the city's changed so much. We've had these neighborhoods that are new out here, huge voting blocks of people. When I speak with these people all the time in my office, and I speak with them about city matters, and they feel very disconnected when I speak to them. They just don't feel like the people that are representing them are necessarily connected to their neighborhood. There's a feeling that there's an old Haslet that runs the city, and that they're not part of that. And I think our thought process is, let's try to include people that may not necessarily think about running for city council, but when they limit it to the people they know in their area, then they become more involved, and we might get some new voices, new faces, and some other input, but still have some at-large people that are citywide, and try to get, that's just what we came up with. There's a million things to talk about here.
The mix is good. There, a couple of meetings, city council meetings ago, I didn't actually catch his name, but there was a young fellow from that area over there, I think it's Sweetgrass, I believe, and spoke very eloquently about their position on that particular item, and I sensed what you're saying, that he felt distanced from.
Yeah, it's the classic NIMBY argument. It's not in my backyard, and the feeling is that, well, we got a big warehouse going in, and the city council doesn't care about us because they live over here off of 156. They could care less what happens over there. And I think having a voice in their neighborhood ultimately would give them some reassurance that they're being heard, or at least a vote is on the council, or a voice on the council. That's why we came up with that.
And you feel that districts, that a mostly non-district, would enhance that.
That's what I personally feel. The other members of the committee did also.
Okay.
But we have a big committee here, and we're going to have a lot of input. We actually sat down and tried to run, use AI and try to figure out how many houses you could fit into each district, which is remarkable. And we came up with some pretty interesting numbers. You don't know how many houses are in Haslet Park and how many are in Hugh White, but it's online.
I did the same thing last week.
Right. And so we came out with some kind of weird lab that where people would have common interests, just as an exercise to see how it would work out. And it's actually pretty interesting.
Are we suggesting that if we do districts that only people from that district could run for that place?
That would be the idea.
And only people within that district could vote for that person that's on the ballot for that district.
Boy, That's slicing it pretty thin.
You could vote for the at-large in the person that represents your district, but you couldn't vote for the representatives of the other districts.
And we talked about the logistics on that too. It sounds crazy, but actually the election board has all that software is already written in for other cities, and they do it all over the state. So lots of cities have different.
Essentially, 70 people, 80 people are voting.
Well, yeah, what did you find out? Because
Well,
again,
I mean,
if we look at the last elections that we've had, I think we've been averaging about 600 people to vote.
Yeah,
Total?
That's the way it may work. You may have
Yeah.
50 people vote in a district, but the same number of people would roughly be in each district if you get it balanced correctly.
And did you see anything that would say that a small population like ours fits this model versus the larger cities with, significantly different demographics?
Never looked at that per se. It's just a theoretic thought process. But as far as specifically looking at the size of our city versus maybe the same size city doing.
Well,
the same
I think
thing.
I did look at some other ones, and
Yeah.
some smaller cities do have districts.
Yep.
Any sense of what their population base was?
Some of the cities, I think I looked at anywhere from 6,000 to 20,000, something like that, when I first started pulling stuff and looking. And that's where I came up with, okay, they've got districts in these, and so that's, they run that way too. And I thought, okay, well, we only have 5 city council. Do we need 6 or do we need 7? And some of them had more city council than I thought that they would. So, you would think because you're small, then you don't have as many, but you wouldn't have 6 or 7, you only have 5. But just because that's the way it's always been done doesn't mean that's the way. Because we're going to have a population of 10,000. We'll max out about 10,000.
Yeah.
And I do think by going by district, it encourages, because we do have low voter participation, and it's always in the same areas, I think if you've got somebody running from Laterra, they're going to get out and vote. And so I think it encourages voter participation. That's just my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion.
It's an
That's
interesting
why.
idea to have a balance between districts and at-large. I don't know if, I think 5 is right for the district versus 3 for the district, but I like the idea and what you're saying about it. I just don't know what the split is. Maybe it's not 5 districts, maybe it's.
No, you wouldn't have 5 districts, maybe you'd have 3 districts. That's would be up. It just depends the direction that this committee wants to go. Or even if you even want to entertain that. It was just an idea, and because it was included in a lot of the stuff that we looked at,
Yeah.
that's why we put it in here for discussion, because it really probably ought to be under the city council
Yeah.
section, but it kind of intermingles.
Okay.
So whatever we do in that section, we felt had to align when we come with this election information as well.
Okay, good. Good discussion.
So I guess that was 7.4, 7.5, same thing. Candidate qualifications, again, if this belongs here or in section 3, or article 3, we did include it here with definitions. Again, because we had the district information in here, you'll see that was included. But certain things certainly would still apply regardless. The residency requirements, the not being convicted of a felony, comply with term limits, if we put term limits in this charter, so we included that. Obviously, they could file for only 1 officer position, that they would have a background investigation, and that they would meet all the other requirements of the Texas Election Code. And then we talked about adding no additional qualifications beyond those permitted by state law would be imposed.
Okay.
Filing for candidacy was pretty straightforward. Again, they would file an application for a place on the ballot as the code specifies. the city secretary would would send the forms and procedures to the candidates. The filing deadlines would also comply with the code unless we would have something else permitted by this charter, but I don't know that we would do anything differently, so we didn't add anything else with that piece.
Can I take over section .8?
Yeah.
Okay, the ballot form in preparation, Katrina, our city secretary, can probably speak to this, but the legislature really changed some laws when it came to the ballot and how things are supposed to be posted. And so you'll see that if you have a proposition, it's very important that it is written a certain way in a certain bold font. The same thing if it's a bond election, this is an increase in your taxes and and she's very familiar with that, But, so it was important to have the ballot form that it's whatever the current, you don't know what the legislature's gonna do this year, but whatever the current, document is supposed to be for each election or what the vote is for. So the language is very important based on what the election code. And so I don't know, the propositions, the third proposition must include that substantially reflects the official proposition text and shall comply with the requirements of the Texas Election Code, including clarity, neutrality, and accuracy. And so, to your point, Carrie, maybe we should add current because it's continuously changing. Because there was, like I read where somebody got in trouble because they didn't follow it, the new one. So I don't know, do you think we should add current there?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
So that will be in that third bullet, Marilyn, correct?
Right, the third bullet,
Right.
Yeah.
right before Texas election code.
Yep. Okay.
Who actually reviews that, the wording of a proposition? Who's the final say on that?
Well, the state does it. If it has to do with any money or any increase in taxes, or the state tells you how it's supposed to, I don't know, can Katrina speak to this?
City attorney.
The city attorney's the one that does it. Okay.
And Marilyn, you bring up a good point of adding that word current, because if you look back the past 3 legislative sessions, there have been changes in what's been done in Austin over the past 3 sessions.
Right, a lot of changes the last year.
Yes.
So can I go back to section 7.05 for a second? Yeah, terms of office. So in here it says that terms of office shall be 2 years. Was there any discussion whether that 2 years was correct or whether it should be anything different than that?
Go ahead.
We talked about that a lot, actually.
Okay.
We went back and forth on it, and ultimately we stayed on the 2 years. My thought process was to go a bit longer on the mayor. I felt like 2 years is hardly, I think it's great for council members, but for the mayor, it's hardly enough time to even get rolling, and then you gotta get reelected again. So, but I think ultimately, we stayed on the 2-year thing and just left it there for more discussion for the committee at large. Because it is a good topic. It's an interesting topic about whether council these are guys that are maybe not able to commit as much time as the mayor, and maybe 2 years is enough time for them to serve, and that might be enough for them to be done, and they don't want to do it again. So we thought about just leaving it there, but I think that's a topic that the committee as a whole needs to spend some time on.
Is term limits somewhere in all of this?
We thought that would also go in Article 3.
Okay.
It was just included in a lot of the things that we saw.
Yeah.
That's why it's highlighted in yellow, because we kept coming up against it. But we felt like it's supposed to be in Article 3, but it needs to kind of be commingled. And so they had term limits. Some were 2 years, some were 3 years. Some you could, run a 6-year term limit. I mean, there were different ones, that we looked
Yeah,
at. But it seemed to be included in all of them, but,
And that gets even more complex when you have districted, because then you have a guy that serves a term limit out in the district, and then he wants to run for an at-large position. You have to address that in the language if you have term limits.
Yeah.
And all of that needs to be reflected in the candidate qualifications too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if they've exceeded their number of success, or terms, then, they would not be eligible, so there has to be something in the candidate qualifications that aligns to whatever we put the term limits on a candidate.
Line 5 under 706 just says comply with the term limits, but we assume
As
that we're going
described
to
in
address
this
that.
charter.
Yeah, and that we're going to have another section of the charter that has very specific spell outs on that.
Yeah.
But until you structure the council, you can't really fully address how you're going to do the term limits. You got to figure out how everybody's going to serve and the structure of it, whether we're going to do districted or just at larges, and just keep it as simple as you want.
Because we did think that there should be term limits. I mean, when we
We all
discussed
agree
this,
on that for sure.
we felt that there should be term limits
Yeah.
on the mayor as well as the
What number?
council members.
How many terms?
Go ahead.
well, it depends if you went 2 years or 3 years. So like if you went 2 years, I think there were,
6, I think.
yeah,
you said.
three terms. If you went 3 years, it was 2 terms. Some of them had the mayor different than the council, It's really kind of up for discussion, but it was either, most of the time, I think we saw 6 years
Right.
total.
And-
3 terms if it was 2 years.
And is that lifetime?
Yeah, that's going to say,
Yeah.
then you got to address whether you just take
Yeah,
a little
whether
break
you-
and run again in another
Right,
election
if you
cycle.
have to lay off and then you can run
Right.
again. But I think, and you would state that consecutive, if you want it where they can come back in.
And did you find examples of cities that the mayor's term was different than the council member's term?
We did find that, yes.
What was the difference?
Typically, I think we see 2 and 3 years.
Yeah,
There's a
3
staggered 3 years terms.
It makes writing the election strategy a little challenging too. We talked about that. How do you stagger your elections
Yeah, your odd
with a
numbers and
3-year
even
term
number
mayor
years.
and a 2-year term council? And, when are you having which thing and how do you define all that? We thought it might get more complex.
Yeah, and even with our committee, we weren't in agreement because I'm just going like,
Yeah.
just keep it. If it's
I
gonna
wanted-
two,
I like
keep it
3 years
2 or
mayor.
keep it 3. Don't mix it up too much,
I'm on
but.
the committee with 2 strong women, I got overruled, but, it's just how it goes. But I like the idea of 3 years.
Yeah, and you
but
want to do it in a way in which it encourages maximum voter turnout, right? Yeah, if you have a mayor that's getting elected and that's the only thing on the ballot, then your turnout's going to be probably much lower than if you were doing a broader
Well, the way that it's
electorate.
structured, it would almost never be the only thing on the ballot, because you could have all these city council elections every other year anyway. They're odd and even years staggered
Okay.
anyway.
Exactly.
But your mayor election would end up even one time and odd the next time, but it would just be with a different slate of seats of the city council each time.
I mean, it could be done. It would just be, you'd have to really define
Yeah,
it.
and that would be a good idea because right now, when you don't have a mayor running, you only have 3 council people, you have a lot lower turnout. So it alternating on those council seats probably would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope somebody's listening and say, I think I want to be on the election committee, subcommittee.
So, Marilyn.
Oh, Marty did.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Marty.
No, it's fine. Marilyn, quick question. So I know you said you played a little ping pong, but was there a consensus from your group in terms of if someone had termed out, if they sit out one term, did you
We
have a
didn't talk
consensus
about that
them
because,
coming back in?
this is something that, we're just throwing this out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our consensus, that we didn't really come to consensus on whether they could come back. But I think in some of the other charters that we saw, they did allow them to come back after
A period of
a
time.
period of time.
Okay. Thank you.
They had to have a break.
Right.
We didn't define any, again, I think that would be in the other section, but
And
we
then,
didn't
then
talk.
whatever the outcomes in another section are, they would have to be pulled into this.
Right,
Yep, okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Makes
Kind of
sense.
like the mayor on a 3-year with the city council on 2-year. And just like you suggested, they'll run again with the odd number and even number on every, each cycle.
Every 3 years.
Yeah, that, I don't know why, that seemed the most appealing to me.
Okay. Thank you for letting me go back there. I think we're on 709. Or is it? Yeah, 709. That's who, I don't know who's leading now.
I can talk about that. Again, pretty straightforward. Do we need to add current everywhere where we
Yeah.
have election code, do you think?
You know, I think if we address it properly in the very first section, and you just say the current constitutional laws of Texas.
And then maybe including the current Texas election code, both, do we have to say redundant there?
I don't know that you have to keep stating current throughout this whole thing.
Okay, no, but I meant in the,
You list it first in the first one, but make sure that they're understanding that you're talking about the current constitution, you're talking about the current election code. But then after that, throughout the rest of the document, it refers back to paragraph 1.
Yeah.
I was actually even looking, that's what I was looking for, is did these other cities use dates, or how did they identify, what was current?
Yeah.
So,
And that would be under the governing law. So,
we can put it there.
Well, in my opinion, I think that current should be stated at the beginning, but it needs to be clarified that this covers this entire document. So many times the ands, the ifs, the commas, all the little things can make such a difference in language when it's written. It needs to be clearly
Right.
stated that current covers this entire document, not just say,
We could add a sentence in that first
In that
section,
first-
just
Yeah.
says for
Like
this.
wherever
for
reference.
this,
Wherever
for
this is referenced,
Article
refers to current.
7, elections, yeah.
It refers to the current Texas.
Yeah.
We could just highlight that.
and then I think you'd also at that point talk to the city attorney to actually say what else needs to be there, just in case Austin states something that is no longer current. We have something in here and it contradicts it, or there's a conflict in it, that what is it'll have to be the Austin code, the current code, until this gets amended again, if you had some type of
Yeah, and
conflict.
we talked a little bit about this actually, and I think just the fact that there's only one document, but actually we talked a little bit about building code, like the city, I don't know what they're using now, but when I built my house, they were using the 2018 building code.
Correct.
I did some things that were 2023 building code, and they made me take them out and put in the old one. So you have to be kind of specific, but when we looked at this document, there's no reference anywhere we saw to an older version of the charter. They just always refer to the charter like there's only one living document. So it's different than building code, but I like the use of the word current like you suggested at first, and maybe just that encompasses the whole section.
I think if we do that in the beginning, then we can avoid having any ambiguity wherever we reference the election code after that.
Yeah, and our city attorney can help us write that opener, that 7.01 properly so that the balance of the document complies to that.
And really, like Marilyn said in the beginning, a lot of the different cities had a lot more explicit language. And when you started reading about what you should be doing in this charter, sometimes the more definition you put into it, the more you hamstring yourself. And so by relying on the code that exists, we felt we would be always in compliance.
And the more definition you put into it, the more apt you're going to have a conflict when something does change.
Right. That's why you see this as pretty simplistic and straightforward as where we could be. Anything else on that one?
We added in provisional ballots. That was something we didn't see everywhere. Not every
Yeah. charter
included it, but we did put that in. The only reason we did that, because I had to vote by provisional ballot the first time I voted in Haslet, because they had they had my address on 156 as State Highway 156, and they wouldn't accept FM 156 on my driver's license. So I couldn't vote. So we put in a provisional ballot There's rules in the Texas Election Code for provisional ballots, but we did put that in our thing, just in case that happens to somebody else.
So in the opener here in 709, where it says voting shall be conducted using those methods, should we have something that say voting about voter eligibility shall also be consistent with tech?
That is, the state dictates that, not the city.
That is part of the Texas Election Code, isn't it?
Right.
The
Okay.
eligibility. I mean, we can add it, it's simple.
Okay, as long as.
And they handle the mail-in ballots, the provisional ballots, and early voting. I mean, they handle all of that.
What if we're addressing one of the other special council or special elections that the city council?
Well, it
Calls
would
for.
still have to go through the election code. I mean, the Texas election code and the people that run the elections.
All right, I'm not asking because I know a better answer, I'm asking because I don't know.
It follows their dates, they still have to stay within their date timeframe.
And who, and
Registration.
the Tarrant County who handles the elections, that's their responsibility.
They set the date for us.
Okay.
And they set the voting.
Preset for the year.
Yeah.
There'll be special election dates, and you just get your information turned in time for that.
Right.
You don't get to pick the date.
Right.
And the registration requirements are very clearly laid out, you know, when they have to be a certain age to vote.
Okay.
All of that's defined.
Okay, but you didn't see any evidence of any voter eligibility in any of the other documents you looked at? Okay, good.
But when you go to the election code and look it up, it's in there
Right, okay,
for the Tarrant County who's ever in charge of the elections.
okay.
Of the state. And you know what? I mean, they're probably gonna be changing a lot of things. They're probably gonna be restricting a lot of things based on some of the legislation bills I see, you know, so tightening up on things. But that's not us, that's the state.
Right.
And also the polling places and hours, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Katrina, but I believe they're all well-defined as well.
Yes, now sometimes we may get a request from Tarrant County to host, or do you have facilities available? You have to get permission every time. So like ours are over at the school, but the school has to respond for each and every election. That's why sometimes the list is different.
So is the way we have this worded sufficient then? Just saying polling places, hours, and procedures shall comply with Texas election code?
Because we have a contract with Tarrant County Elections, and we adhere to that.
Okay. And then the next section is just about, you know, what happens after the election. So the tabulation and canvassing, the election returns are processed and canvassed within the time frame. Again, there's a specific time frame that's defined for when that has to be done.
And they take care of it.
Yep, and they define that. And then there is a requirement that the governing body declares the results as required.
That would be the county election commissioner.
I'm sorry?
Is that the county election commissioners, the governing body?
No, that's the city
That's the city
council.
council.
Our city council has to.
Yeah, they declare
Yeah,
the
they have to
results.
declare the results. They have,
They
they
have
have
a-
so much time after the election and get the final numbers to declare the
Do we need to-
results.
Do we need to
There's
further
usually-
define governing body? We didn't discuss that any further, but is governing body gonna imply the city council, or is it always
It should be defined earlier on in the charter
the term
itself.
governing body
Yeah.
should be defined?
Yes, it should be.
Is it defined as the mayor and the city council?
I don't know.
It's going to be determined by the type of council form that it gets determined, so.
Yeah. And I think typically they hold a special council meeting to do this.
To canvass the election.
Yep, to canvass the election. It's kind of a separate, city council.
There are strict dates and timelines we have to do that on.
Right. Any other questions on that? No, okay. majority requirement and runoff elections. So we said the candidates shall be elected by a majority of votes cast. And then to talk about the runoff, if no candidate for mayor or council member receives the majority of the votes cast for that office, a runoff election shall be held between the two candidates receiving the highest number of votes. So they would be in the runoff in accordance with Texas Election Code. Then the candidate receiving the highest number of votes in that runoff shall be elected.
So, can I ask a question? We're a very small town. Do we anticipate this is going to be an issue? Kind of what Brad was talking about. If we have an election just for that small little sliver of the district, now you got 50 people voting, and they may not show up. So, would it? I'm asking. I don't have an opinion really, but do we want to just say whoever gets the most votes at the end, you win, even if it's a third? Do we want to do that? Again, I guess going back to what Greg said, I agree with you. I think we have a special election for District 1, my neighbors will show up, that's it, no one else, it's like, 5 people,
Yeah,
wouldn't that
isn't
be
that what this is saying, though? It's the majority of votes cast?
That's what I was just gonna say.
Whether it's one or it's 50?
Well, the way I'm seeing it is if you had 3 candidates, okay? And they split the vote in such a way that no one person gets more than 50%. So now you have to have a runoff election.
That's when you have to have a
It's
runoff.
the
I'm saying, just don't do that for this. We're too small of a town.
Yeah, but the first one, A, says elected by a majority of votes cast.
Says if no candidate, so
If no
candidates would be
candidates.
elected, so say there's 2 people, obviously that's easy.
That's easy.
One's gonna be a majority and
Right.
one,
You win,
would-
right.
3 people, you could have no majority.
Correct.
And that's when the 2 of the highest, I think we just saw that in one of the recent, not for the city, we just saw that in one of the recent elections. And then the 2 highest that received the highest number. So somebody got 15 and somebody got, 17 and somebody got 3. The 2 people with the highest.
But I'm just saying, do we skip
And
this?
that's what, I think that's what Chuck's trying to go to, is if you had a 15, 17, and a 3, is that worth having another election just to get to decide where those other 3 votes
just
go?
say you
Or
won.
if people change their mind?
Well, in the spirit of, if there was 100,000 people voting versus the same concept, is that if there was 45% of the people believed one thing and 55 believed another, but there was 2 candidates that believed the same thing that 55 did, and they split their vote, then they would have, basically, the 55 would have been outvoted by the 45, because they would have probably poured all their support to that single candidate that shared that same concept. That's the whole concept behind it. So I don't know whether we have to change it. I agree with you, though, like, it could be 8 to 6.
It's different with Fort Worth or Haslet.
Yeah,
okay?
no, I
Much
get it.
smaller.
So Chuck, you're saying whatever the absolute highest number of votes received by a candidate is the winner of the
It's the winner
election.
of the end.
It's not a majority based on, let's say, 100 voters. You have to be at 51.
Right, not only 51, you can win with any number. I know it's dangerous, but I'm just thinking also, it's
So-
also dangerous to try to keep having special
So
elections.
you're saying omit B.
I'm just recommending, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't
Yeah,
have an
I'm
opinion.
just-
What would your thoughts be on the citywide elections, the at-large and the mayor? I certainly would want to have a runoff.
I think it's different.
Yeah.
But and again, it's probably, this is way in the weeds, I get it, we're just talking, but as you're reading this, I'm going, I don't know, if it's such a small district, it just seems like a really kind of, I don't know.
No,
crazy
if you
situation.
look at some old elections from Haslet, like in 2010, sometimes it was 70 to 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was close. I mean, you could come down to something like that, but I think the citywide, we'd have to specify, I think the citywides have to go to runoff if you wanted to do that for the districted positions.
But we have to, see, this is why it coordinates with
Correct.
city council, because if we don't have districts, it's really a moot point.
Yeah, right.
So it just, and then you would kind of align it all. So,
So
but
we should,
that's, I agree, you don't want to have, it's very expensive to have an election. And, so, yeah, you don't want to,
We're gonna come up against this when the form of government section gets addressed. So maybe it would be a good idea if we just did a bit of a straw poll here and said, do we really want districts or not? And if so, how many? And then that gives some guidance to that subcommittee when they go off and start working.
That's a good idea.
When talking about the elections, though, the state constitution says a plurality of vote is required.
So we can't bypass it.
I mean, it says plurality, it doesn't say majority.
Oh,
It says plurality.
oh, okay.
So you're looking for a plurality election.
Mm-hmm.
For small districts, yeah.
Right. For any.
Yeah, well, why don't we work our way through this, and then we can come back to that other topic of whether or not we want districts. Okay?
Go ahead, yeah,
I mean, I'm just gonna pick up where she left off. I think we were on 712, right?
yeah.
Yeah, this is all straight up stuff. Oath of office, just exactly what we've all done to, every time we've served on a committee. Special elections, that's defined, the dates are defined by the election code. We don't get to pick that. They handle all the details, like she was just describing earlier. And the ballot language and everything remains exactly the same as it is in the other section. We have some, I guess, 14 vacancies. The mayor pro tem, we haven't defined the mayor pro tem, I think, in the other section.
Wait, you
We got a
skipped
problem.
15.
Yeah,
We have 7, 15, and 14 like they're
Oh,
flipped,
Yeah,
and 15's twice.
uh-oh,
Yeah, I was gonna
uh-oh,
go-
editor did a
I
bad
was gonna
job.
go in order the
Editor
numbers.
did a bad job.
We got 215s also.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's renumber, sorry, guys.
well, do you wanna call, I was gonna go in order the numbers and just go back and forth to get them right, so.
So where are
We might
you?
have added
I went to
something in
14
back
because
there.
it was the next number.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna go back to the
I'll go to
15s.
15, and then I'll change 15 to 16, and the second 15 to 16, and then 17, and then 18. So vacancies,
We know how to count.
yeah, the mayor pro tem, we haven't really defined that anywhere else. Will fill the office of mayor until the next designated mayoral election. That's where the 2 and 3 year thing comes in.
That's true, we talked
And
about
we
that.
talked about that, and the city council can call a special election. So if the mayor left like after 6 months, then I think the city council would definitely call a special election, and we would use the dates the state provides to elect a mayor. And we'd have to have enough time, obviously, to have the filing requirements and all that, for any, just like any candidacy would. And then we have to detail in there, like, that's just to fill the remainder of the term, as opposed to a full 3 year term from that election date. So there's a lot of little details there that we'll have to iron out in other sections. The city council can order a special election if the vacancy occurs within the 12 months or more remaining in the term. And the city council may appoint a qualified person to serve the remainder of the term if less than 12 months remain, or call a special election. We had a lot of discussion in here, and there's more to talk about does the mayor pro tem remain the city council member for that position while they serve as the mayor? And I think looking in the other charters, we came to the agreement that they remain a city council person with the same powers they had before, that they serve as the acting mayor.
Well, I think it depends on the time limit.
Yeah.
There was a time limit
Yeah,
on it.
the 12-month thing and all that stuff. So that's something that some charters define very clearly and others are much more vague about. But there's
So my question then, if the mayor pro tem is serving on council and mayor, can they still vote?
well, we talked about that. I don't remember what we actually concluded. We went back and forth on that so much.
That's gonna once again determine on what type of form of government you
Right,
go to.
right.
Because the
And
mayor
how-
only
yeah.
votes if there's a
If there's a
tie.
Right. And so that's a very vague part of almost everything we read, and I don't really know exactly, but obviously it can very well happen. And so we do need to define that, I think, with a lot of detail.
So if there's a 7-member city council, quorum would be 4.
Mhm.
And if the mayor pro tem is a council member, that moves it to 3, right?
Right.
So you wouldn't end up in a tie.
You would not end up in.
You would know that, yeah, that's when we talked about the number of council people we would have as well, and that's one of the things.
Odd or even numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, why we said 7.
Yeah, some
We felt we
cities-
needed more than 5. We didn't want even, so we went to 7.
Because,
Not too scientific.
It was 3 to 3, and then everybody was
Right. Right.
So that, I think that's something that we have to really pay attention to when we start detailing all this down in the other sections. And then the appointing the qualified person, I think, the one thing I was reading back through this a little bit a few days ago, and I was thinking for the qualified person, we need to probably reference in this section that the qualifications are the same as were listed in the other section for somebody that runs for office. I would assume that's what that means, but I don't know if we need to define that as stated in section, whatever, yeah.
Would that appoint,
Qualified as per section 7.05,
Right.
and would that appointment then by the city council be just the regular, majority, or would you now need at least a 3/4 vote?
We didn't define that, so that's something we may need to address.
And this is really going to be based on what kind of government you come up with.
And that's what I was looking on
So
this
it's-
one,
Yeah.
on this one too.
Depends on-
If you decide to just use the two-year term, you'd probably want to just maintain that's going to stay open until,
Right.
because
Until-
you're going to be holding an election anyways
Right,
within the
right.
year.
Right.
So
Right now, when there's a vacancy, the mayor can appoint somebody. When there's a vacancy. I think is how it runs on city council.
Okay. I'm not sure on that.
I
so,
think that's
yeah,
how.
I don't,
city council appoint?
I think it's just, I think the mayor can appoint when there's a vacancy, right now. Is that?
But this is not suggesting we take that approach, right?
No, well, I don't know what approach I'm suggesting. Because we haven't determined what kind of government we're gonna have. And so many of these things are gonna, it'll
tie
flow out,
together.
it'll tie together, correct. And so, it might not be the city council, I don't know how you're gonna.
and the one thing that's going through my mind is if you do determine that you want the mayor to run on the odd years and that, then I would probably only recommend doing a one at-large with, that way you have 3 council members and a mayor. You're not
At large. Oh,
you're
yeah.
not tilting one
Yeah.
year
Oh,
to
yeah.
the next,
That's-
so.
So, yeah, I mean, there's so many different scenarios, but, that's how that person gets replaced. Right now, it's the mayor that replaces the city council, and then if it's more than 12 months. If it's less than 12 months, it probably can just stay open. Or if it's less than 12 months, you can appoint, but if it's more, you have to
Yeah, if it's a
vote.
2-year. If you go to a 3-year, you're gonna have to address it.
Yeah,
But if
you have to have a
if
special
it's only a
election.
2-year and they have less than 12
Right, so
months.
you
yeah.
really want to limit the special elections you're going to have, because
Yeah,
it's cost the
it's
city a lot of
expensive.
money. You want to be more frugal than that.
And especially if you don't have a lot of people turning out to vote.
Anyway, correct.
Looking at these form of government sections in some of these home charters, there's quite a bit of content in those sections.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, 7:15, recall. Any elected official may be removed from office by recall election. The procedures for recall are going to be established by the charter. And that there is literally, when you look at other city charters, the recall section is page after page after page after page of how to go about a recall and how to do it. And we have I think it's section 16 in our outline, where we talk about recall in detail, and that committee will have to adopt the very detailed recall procedure. But there is a procedure that differs from city to city, and I think that's going to be a big topic.
Right,
How
and
that works.
the other big topic, and I think it was included in this, but it's about initiative and referendum.
Yeah, that's down in
And that's
section.
also really, it's very extensive, and thinking that might be better defined in its own article as
But
well.
our section
even if
16 in
it's-
our outline actually has a whole section just on that, and it deserves its own section. We've looked at some of the other charters, and it's pretty impressive how detailed that gets. I would have thought it would have been a fairly simple process, but it's not. So we will have another subcommittee, I think, that will address that in detail. This section only addresses and references that
That it's going to
section,
happen,
that it's going to
yeah.
happen. And then the same thing for section 16, which is new 16, initiative and referendum.
Sorry.
That's going to be in that same separate universe, and we're just going to reference this section will reference that section as the master of how that works.
Can you guys
Yeah.
help me a little bit understand? again, we're not a giant city, we're not a state. What's your anticipation of us needing a recall election? Do we want to even go down this road of trying to define that?
I mean, I don't know how, I don't know any circumstance. I mean,
It could be by petition.
you could go online right now and wonder sometimes why that hadn't happened already at times in our city, just based on the vitriol that you see
Right.
online. So I just, it has to be there in case it happens, but I don't think the odds of it happening are very high.
Does the bar need to be so high though that it's like never gonna happen? I mean, I guess we could just do it, yeah, we got it, but
I
you need
think we have to
3/4 of.
allow for it.
What's that?
I think we have to allow for it.
Okay.
Yeah, you could end up with somebody moving out of the city of Haslet and still being on city council.
Right.
Or you could have somebody that has committed some
Committed a
significant crime, and now they're still
And they refuse to step
representing the
down.
citizen.
And I think somebody's fighting that right now that's convicted of, or committed a crime, and they're trying to kick them off, and they're fighting it.
Yeah,
They're trying
that's
to
in,
recall
that's
them.
actually local, that's in
Yeah,
Trophy Club.
they're trying to,
Yeah,
Okay.
Trophy Club. They have a
Okay.
city councilman.
I'm
they're
just
trying
curious,
to
we just
recall.
sit up a small town, it seems like we're doing an awful lot of work for something that probably never happened, but, yeah, it'll happen, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
It can happen. And then campaign finance and ethics, candidates must comply with the charter's regulation of campaign finance reporting and ethics. And I think Marilyn's a great resource. She's run for office here in the city and understands that Joette's run for office. These guys know how campaign finance works. I don't know much about it. My thought process was, I want to be really detailed about this, is I don't want outside money influencing our elections, but their advice is just follow the state code and leave it alone, because there's a lot of reporting requirements and things like that. But you know, my redneck system is let's not let a developer come in and finance a big campaign locally, and a guy that doesn't live here, who has an alternative interest to what our city needs. But that's apparently not really a great idea. So
I guess,
if they know
Carrie.
much more about that than I
Yeah,
do.
Carrie, you
Yeah.
can speak to this, but I told him that I've been privy to a lot of things and involved in different areas, and I've really never seen an abuse of this. And nobody ever approached me when I was on council. I think because they knew they wouldn't get anywhere with me. But I don't know, you can speak to how you feel about that. You were on council longer than I was.
I would just say that you still, the regulation, you have to follow it, no matter what office you have. And it's like you just do your self-reporting. As long as you're doing your self-reporting, you're going to have yourself protected. It doesn't take long to self-report.
No, but I'm talking about the ethics,
Of contributions.
of contributions
Oh.
from,
We've not seen anything like
No.
that. We're a smaller town,
Yeah,
but it's
right.
not saying it's not going to happen.
I've
you
never
know.
seen that.
You know,
So,
I deal a lot, like I said, compliance with Lockheed Martin. We have a lot of things going in compliance, and it's all, if everyone was 100% the integrity of everybody was 100%, you wouldn't have half the regulations that you have right now. But the key is you have that potential,
Yeah, that's it.
so.
Well, Todd felt pretty strongly that he wanted to have some kind of verbiage that controlled where campaign funds would come from.
yes, getting campaign funds from developers or whatever.
Yeah.
If I remember, and Katrina helped me too, that self-reporting is if someone did come talk to you, you had to report it. you
Right,
know.
yes, you do have to
And-
report it.
Yeah.
You can still
But he
receive it.
he didn't really want them to be able to get it.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, first of all, I'm stupid, so I haven't run for these kind of things. And just in my mind, my thought process was, let's just say there's a big tract of land here, developer wants to change the zoning in it to put apartments. We don't have apartments in Haslet. Let's just say he wants that zoning, and he has two candidates that might support doing apartments there that he wants to run for office, and he can throw 10 grand or $5 grand or whatever, way more than what most of us would spend on an election, and help achieve electing people that serve his interest by just funding their campaign and getting them out there. He's not bribing, he's not doing anything bad. I'm just saying, do we want that kind of outside influence on our election or not? And their advice to me was, we really can't regulate that. But that was just my thought
It's going to
process.
come down to how did they prove it and everything too, and what
Yeah.
type of documentation you have to prove it. Because I'm certain things that have happened like that in the past too. But again, I believe in your campaign finance and ethics, you're reporting on the aspect of you have not promised anything to running for this
Right.
office.
Right, and I'm not
So-
implying that. I guess what I'm saying is that you can report it all day. This company gave me $2,500 for my campaign, but most of us don't look at that. And your candidate that you're running against may have gotten $200 total from his neighbors, and he doesn't have enough money for signs or things, so you overwhelm him with signs and you get elected. Is that how we wanted to do or not? That's all. That's why I brought the point up. I just wanted to have a discussion relative to how we determine how we finance our elections, because I think how we finance our elections is a really big deal
It is also
in America.
subject to the open records. You can do an open records request. Any citizen can do an open records request and see the financial contributions that were given to any candidate.
Was there anything that you read that would suggest that a city has adopted a policy where there was no outside money allowed?
No, not at all. That's how I got overvoted.
That's also why we have unelected panels and commissions that have to see this stuff before it goes to city
Yeah,
council.
none of that's unethical. Like
Right.
an outside person can donate money to. I give money to the Keller elections. We have a business in Keller. I don't live there, but I give money to every election there, because if a candidate is serving an interest or has a position that I need for my business, I donate to them. And so I'm guilty of it. I just don't want.
You don't want them to do it
I don't want them to do it here. That's all. Yeah. So.
And it's been a long time since I've looked at it, but you, Marilyn, might remember too, there are thresholds to this whole thing too. And then basically if you exceed certain thresholds, you have to report any type of political action committee. You know, if there's a lot of dollars going towards it. So again, and then once again, now it's open to the open records that someone can actually go and say, hey, this, you know, and that's the reason you have to report it, because then that open records, they come back and tell you.
No, I get all that. I understand that it's all there available for people to say, hey, look, I don't want to vote for this guy because he's being backed by the developers, he's being backed by this company or whatever. I was just trying to say, do we really want to say, is that okay? And we're just going to limit donations to
It happens all the
citizens.
time, not just at
Yeah.
the city, but as we saw, probably all the way up to Austin and that type of thing, because we had some things come through Austin that were basically very specific to, I'm sure that money got thrown at it from a developer side. Can we prove that?
Well,
Yeah.
just recently, I think a lot of things got thrown into the Houston area, you know, and North Texas lost out on a lot of things
Yeah.
in lieu of Houston.
Well, that was just my thought, but I got outvoted by sensible subcommittee members, so. But we did discuss it,
We-
so.
In detail.
Yeah,
we're
I feel very
open-minded.
strongly about it.
You were sandwiched.
Well, try sitting in a room with these two ladies to let me know how it goes for you. And on top of that, they're feeding you 4,000 calories of home-baked treats and everything else, and you're just helpless. Whatever. So, yeah, you can't,
Okay,
you can't.
now
can't
somebody's
fight
going to volunteer to go and
Bribery now.
Hold on one
We
second.
better put that in the bylaws.
Hold on one second.
It's cold.
It is cool.
Thank you for asking.
Look at me.
All right, so last section here then is severability?
This section is really, just says that if we wrote something in here that doesn't meet election code, then the election code overrules us. It's just a bailout.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-up.
Yes.
So this looks like a great start. Looks like there's a lot of stuff that has to be balanced against the form of government election, and we get that all put together, right?
Yes.
Any other questions for this committee?
I do have one question. In the homework that you did, for obviously me, I think this is great. And if you're registered to vote, you qualify. But in the homework that you did you see any charters that had age requirements for mayor or city council that are different than if you're registered to vote? Did any city say you had to have a certain age or live in the city for a longer period of time?
I did see 18, I saw. You had to be 18.
Right, well, you have to be 18 to
Which
vote.
is
so-
to vote, so.
Right, but in terms of age or any extended period of time to live in that municipality? Was it more than a year? Did you notice any of those? from the
We had
homeowners?
there is a clause in here about living more than a year.
Yes.
in the-
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
But we didn't see anything age-wise, so we didn't talk about it at least.
Okay, but you didn't notice any city that had some outlandish requirement? Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on, agenda item 5C. This is where we're going to discuss updates from any of the other subcommittees that we established
I
last
think
meeting.
I read it was 21.
I'm sorry, what, Ron?
What's the age for office, whatever, city council, mayor, whatever? Is it 21 currently?
18.
It's, and Haslet's, it's 18 for Haslet, okay.
That probably needs to be on the qualifications, but, so we also put together a couple other subcommittees last time, the form of government and financial procedures. Are there any updates from those subcommittees to review today?
I can speak to form of government.
All right.
So we took a totally different approach than the elections committee. We had some really good discussion and really just got to a starting point, I guess, if you will. And we put some information together intended to spur conversation amongst the group. We didn't feel like it was the best for the committee for us to make a decision on which direction we should go. So we were hoping to have some discussion today. So an important thing that we identified, y'all had some printed papers. It's the first one, is the city manager is totally different than the city administrator. Not all of us knew that. So we wanted to bring that to attention and make sure that in our verbiage and terminology that we used the appropriate title for what the role was. And everybody's got a paper with a description. And to sum it up, I won't bore you with reading all of this, but the administrator is more of a assistant to the mayor, whereas the manager is a CEO. And it depends on which avenue we take, which one of those we would assign. Something else that we chose to do was we looked at a whole variety of different types of local government structures. We didn't feel like some of these fit our city, you know, something like a town meeting. It's probably way too small for Haslet. We kind of narrowed it down to 3 main ones, which is the strong mayor or the strong council or the hybrid. Now, the research that we did, I was honestly really interested in the hybrid method, but the more research that we did, hybrid is not an official structure. It is essentially a city manager and a mayor that work really well together and share the responsibility. So saying that, it kind of lost my interest, because even if we do have a mayor and a manager that work well together, we're not always going to have that. So I don't believe that that would be the best avenue to take. We looked at a couple different cities in what they decided to go with, and it's really split between a strong mayor or a strong council. It seems like the strong mayor are generally mayors that have been in place for a long time and have a history of doing a really good job. Was it Frisco that we looked at?
Yeah, Frisco.
Frisco has had a mayor that's been there for a substantial duration, and he's done a phenomenal job there. So they run a strong mayor government. We looked at Willow Park as well. Willow Park's,
What did they have before that person then, though?
I don't recall.
We don't know. Yeah.
We looked at a lot of things, and I don't know if we looked at that.
Yeah, we just looked at the current setting or the current form of government.
We were trying to identify the positives and the negatives for each of the types. And it was really balanced. It wasn't weighed one way or the other. And really it came down to the people that they had in place, right? It either worked or it didn't for whatever they had. So the more discussion we had and the more research that we did, the more we really don't have a specific direction to point toward. So we're really interested in hearing what questions y'all may have or what input you may have.
I have a question.
Sure.
With the weak mayor, strong council, did you look at whether the mayor was a member of council, a voting member of council?
We did, I believe it's in here.
Because that was one of the things when I was looking at different things, that was one of the interesting structures. And I thought that was with the weak mayor and strong council type situation.
Yeah, so if you look at the chart that's kind of multicolored here, we compare, we did different blocks, what the mayor's powers are, what the city manager's powers are, and so on and so forth, and there's two sides. And we talked about that. Basically, if you have a strong city council, you have a very weak mayor, and they might be a tiebreaker, may not be a tiebreaker, but think of the Fort Worth model. Fort Worth, generally, the mayor is they go around and shake hands and kiss babies. Okay, they don't do anything. The city city manager runs the city for them. Okay, so and that's what we're saying. We don't know if that's what we really need here. We're a smaller town. Can we do something different?
And another thing that we looked at as well is the average income for those respective roles to see how that needed to weigh in on our decision.
The other, then to look at the converse with the strong mayor and weak council, I also remember seeing something where, and I can't remember the terminology, but it had to do with the city administrator, so that you would have a strong mayor, then the city administrator would be like the chief operations, I think.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The city administrator would be like the mayor's right-hand person.
Right, and they would they would manage the administration.
Correct.
Of all the departments and all of those things.
Correct. And part of our discussion was, again, those people have to work really well together.
Right.
And
Well, in addition to that, they have to have time to do that.
sure.
That goes
And going
back,
forward, that might not be possible.
that's what I was trying to figure out from the aspect of what did they do before that? Because if he was a strong mayor, what, did he serve on the city council? What was his qualifications that took him into the mayor to be a strong mayor?
You know, to me, it's almost ideal, like you pick your candidates and then the type of government. If you look at the past, we had I guess he was city manager. It was an administrator, and it may have been designed to be a strong mayor, but in my relations with him, it wasn't at all. So I think it really does depend on who's in there as to how well it operates. Look at our current situation.
Yes.
The city administrator support the mayor. I'm not positive, but I don't get the feeling that that's the situation that we're currently under.
I think whatever, I'm sorry.
I would like to lay out something that you have to almost generalize. Either that or, you can't tailor it to the people. So that's not a choice, so we have to go the other direction. But I hope that we can consider all situations currently what we're under. I've seen in the past where it worked beautifully. My nephew works with many of the cities, and he brought up Euless. He said their city council meetings last an hour or less. And they're there to work for the city, not to combat each other. And I want whatever we come up with as far as our form of government, like I say, we have to kind of generalize because, but, I just want that considered, by everyone that votes.
So I have
One of the things I think is also important is that there is, I'm gonna call it a balance of power. And there's checks and balances. I think that's very important to have checks and balances in whatever form we have, so that there's, you know, the mayor is an elected official, whereas a city manager is a hired person. How do you control and have checks and balances over the power of those positions?
What you're describing is the hybrid we were talking about, because basically the research we did, like most Texas towns, small towns, or most towns have like a 90% of them, I think some ridiculous number, have the council, the strong council version, okay, or a variation there, real close. But that's the same thing we see, and then I'm hoping not speaking out of turn. We see what's going to happen when this council is very, very strong, and they get in a fight with the mayor. It's things don't get done. So how do you adjust that? And then, you know, for every mayor holds, there's going to be someone else that's going to jump in that didn't have the knowledge he has. And then I don't know. That's where our discussion kind of went.
And I think
we can't really build it for one person.
Right, and I think that's where a city administrator with expertise plays some role in that as well.
Maybe, because they're hired by those very people that are fighting each other.
So I'm going to make some observations on some of the stuff that you guys have said. So if you have a strong council form of government, it seems like you would want more districts so that you don't have a concentration of power in a few.
Right.
Okay? Because the purpose of a strong council is to dilute the power of the mayor, I would assume. Okay, so in order to maintain continuity with that thought, then you have to have more districts. Otherwise, you end up in the same position you are with a strong mayor, or could, right? If you're going to have a city manager, you probably want a strong mayor. If you want to have a city administrator, you probably want a strong council. And the reason I say that is if you're going to have a city manager, they're reporting to the council. And at that point, you probably need a strong mayor to help balance that out. If you're going to have a city administrator, they're supporting a mayor, and at that point, you probably want a strong council to, again, maintain balance.
But Greg, by definition, if you have a strong mayor, you can't have a city manager.
Correct.
Because city manager is now the chief executive officer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, your points are correct. Just the terminology was swapped, I believe.
Okay.
But and some discussion that we had is, I think everyone here would agree that Mayor Halsey is very well-read and very intelligent on law and all the doings of a city, right? So he does a great job as a strong mayor. However, if you bring in a city administrator, maybe they work well together and they get along, but then Mayor Halsey's term is up, and then I come in and maybe I don't get along with this guy at all, then we have a big problem, right? So we're trying to find that happy medium there where, like you said, there's checks and balances. There is not necessarily a power struggle amongst everybody. Everybody kind of has clear defined roles, but I'm hesitant to lean upon people having to work directly together, having two people trying to run the city where maybe I know better and I know more, so I'll just take it over and I'll go do it. And then this guy's not doing anything or not learning anything or whatever it may be. So it's a really complex question.
So what happened, and I guess this is the other side of it, I'm just playing devil's advocate at this point. Say now we have an election, the mayor handles is a high school kid that came out and is 18 years old.
Yeah,
and
that's a great point.
And now we don't have continuity of running the city.
Right, because we're trying to think forward as to where the size of the city may go. and what best fits with that size of city in the future. But that's a great question, because that could very well happen. Yeah.
I think also we have to look at who's going to run for mayor in this town. And our last two mayors are almost cookie cutter examples of a retired guy who has the time to be an aggressive manager, have a lot of duties, doesn't need a lot of money because it doesn't pay very well. And I think if we weaken the mayor, just personal, if we weaken the mayor and take reliance on the mayor out of the everyday running of the city, we actually get a lot more people out there that might be interested in running, because you might get a guy that's 45 and has a full-time job that might still could serve as the mayor.
I don't disagree with that at all.
And so that's just, my thought is just to allow a larger pool of people who have the time to do it, maybe weaken those duties and let those duties be run by a full-time person, and then have the mayor serve as a baby kisser, basically, but it's still representing our city.
In that model, let me just ask a quick question. In that model, then, the city council provides a lot of direction to the city manager, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And at that point, that's where I think then you would want more district emphasis, so you have a less concentration of power in the council.
But I think that mayor needs to have some input in the voting process in the city council, tiebreakers or whatever we write in. I know different cities do it differently, but I still just don't like the idea of only having a few guys that can actually do the job.
Yeah.
And that's what we've had for the past 15 years. There's only a few guys. I mean, look, there's almost nobody runs, because it's a daunting job.
Yeah.
I mean, Mayor Holsey does a lot for very little reimbursement. I mean, he's a full-time 60-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see that change a little bit, just from the standpoint of that way anybody can run and still be able to do it.
Yeah. And
That's just my personal thought.
I don't disagree with that thought process at all. The more holistically you try to look at everything, the more confusing it gets, honestly. Trying to, be thorough and take in different inputs and look at all different angles, it makes it more convoluted.
You were going to make a point a minute ago.
I was actually just going to ask, when you were looking at that, would you also consider that the mayor is the elected official, but he didn't have all the day-to-day responsibility? Would it only be a city manager then? So you'd have a city manager versus the mayor with a city administrator, because you were concerned about the relationship, the working relationship. Whether it would have been a city administrator that's hired or appointed by the council and mayor together, and then but reports to the mayor, but then really runs the day-to-day operation of the city. Is that the hybrid model you were talking about?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Again, you can do anything you want to do. It's just what's going to work. And that was one thing that kind of got us that's why we're here, is that for every city that it worked, a bunch of cities failed. We're doing hybrid.
Yeah.
So what eventually happens is they default to what we're doing right now.
And
It's just a super strong council, a mayor that does nothing, and then you're done.
I think that you can eliminate some of that for it to fail if you have very defined roles for each position, and if you have defined checks and balances. Because you have seen in many places where city managers have really taken advantage of the city. So you want to have checks and balances on everybody, so that doesn't happen. So if everything's very well defined.
Because you're relying on the elected city council to be that check for that city manager. And that's where I think what Greg was saying, that's where having the districts distributes your council in a way that may help achieve that balance.
In the models you guys looked at, the weak mayor, can you describe, what is a weak mayor? What powers do they have?
So the weak mayor is for lack of better words, kissing babies, comes to ceremonies. He's not running the city.
That would be Fort Worth mayor.
Right.
So literally, he just shows up for ribbon cuttings.
Yes.
He welcomes people to the city, gives somebody a key to the city when they pull somebody out of a burning car.
Yeah.
And he does basically nothing else.
Dresses up as the Easter Bunny.
Yeah, relative to the duties of
But
the.
you could give them, what about signing contracts? I think it's very important.
That's what I'm asking,
Yeah,
like-
who's
like-
responsible for signing contracts and things?
We did not get that deep into it.
So,
And I guess that's the other question too, is when you have these types of situations pop up, the people say, hey, I elected that mayor to go do something.
Sure.
And that's, they think about that for the city of Fort Worth.
Well, that's where I'm headed. That's where I'm
Yeah.
headed right now.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like you look at what's happening with the downtown rerouting and all the online garbage.
Correct.
And you look, at what point would a weak mayor, would he have any influence over that process? Is it all the city council? And that would be very clear. Would a mayor be able to influence these type of projects in the city? How would he do that? I don't understand what a weak mayor is, because I've only seen
The weak mayor would not have the ability to influence that.
at all. That would be the city council would make every decision.
So, council manager form, the mayor's powers are listed as mostly ceremonial or presiding, votes on council, often full or tiebreaker, limited to no veto, no direct admin control, that goes through the manager.
So it does get a vote?
Yes.
Or does he vote?
No, votes on all the time.
And what's the hybrid, that, like with
They would
the,
say, like, we'll talk about
The mayor's powers for the hybrid nominates city manager, but the council confirms it. He has veto power, override by 2/3 or 3/4, controls or co-controls agenda, full voting rights, plus presides, submits policy priorities, budget goals, and recommends manager removal.
And that's all according to how we write that.
Yeah,
That sounds a little more balanced.
totally
Again,
agree.
If it works, if it works.
If it works.
Again, the 18-year-old person jumping in may not work. Okay? So I didn't think about that when we were talking.
Right, and that's how I felt about it. I really liked everything that I read about the hybrid, but then the more research that we did, the people work really well together. And like I said, we may have that now or 5 years from now, but not always. And what kind of situation are we in when they don't get along?
yeah, that's why it's important, whatever system you decide, government,
We decide.
that we decide, you have to have really clear defined roles.
Yeah.
Right.
And that way, nobody's overstepping. You know what your role is, you know what your job description is. Yeah, stay in your lane.
I think this is going to be a very, very critical part of this charter that will influence if people accept changing to a hybrid.
Absolutely.
That's sort of my question, and I don't know, again, the direction. I wasn't here last month, but I don't know the exact direction that we're going, but I did see, again, on some of our bylaws that we could have some outside, some type of outside conversations or, have a meeting or, do we need to lay this type of stuff out and actually hold maybe one, maybe two different type of meetings out in the community, have the presentation, explain the presentation, and then let and get community feedback.
Input, yes.
When they truly understand what these roles are.
I think we absolutely should.
Excellent suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important when we do that, which is very difficult for people to separate themselves from current situation. But they have to think.
Future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
down the
have to
road.
think not today, they have to think, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
can't look at what we have in our situation right now. And I think that's going to be
And that-
hard to convince people of
That has to
but-
be part of the presentation, saying, hey,
Yes.
that you can't, this is what it actually looks at, this is the presentation, this is what this piece looks at, this is what this piece, and then say, you can't look at it just as of the situation today. How is it going to be if we hire, and maybe even put out scenarios, if we actually hire an 18-year-old mayor?
And Carrie, that's a great idea, and I've been involved in some of this before. You gotta rehearse and be ready before you go external, because when you go external, you got one shot to get it right. And you're right, we do need to go external, that's a great idea. Once we get it prepared and we've rehearsed it, so we come across as we know what we're doing, we're going this direction based upon, we want your input, and here's what we have at this point. We want voice of citizen.
That's right. And Carrie, that, as Marty said, that's a great point. Everything we do here is gonna have to be taken to the public. We're not gonna sit here and, as a commission, come up with everything and say, well, here's what you got.
Yeah, but this is one of those big ones that
This is a
having,
very-
having an unelected administrator for the city versus having your fully elected leadership for the city.
Yeah.
That's a big question for the citizens to answer.
Because this leads to the aspect of if we actually put it on a ballot for, they have to vote on their form of government.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know how the perspective of the city before we put it on a
Well,
ballot.
we have to know
Yeah.
the perspective of the city.
And it gives us an opportunity to also educate the community with the differences.
Yeah, with what their options are.
Right, and why, and the rationale why,
That's right.
you might propose one over the other.
Totally agree.
And it's up to us to present the different scenarios and let the citizens decide.
All right, so that is going to be the first topic for a community workshop. Date to be determined. Okay? So I think that's the first one we've identified for community outreach. Thank you.
And I think we'll meet again as our subcommittee,
Oh, yeah.
Chuck and
Yes.
Kyle.
We got more to work, we want to let you guys know where we're at.
Well, again, I think we're gonna need that from you, and I think we're gonna need for you to help at least initiate that presentation, and then like we said, we're gonna have to bring it back into here, and we're gonna have to look at that presentation to actually say, okay, we don't want to appear biased. We want to state the facts, we want to state this is what it looks like, and have a good solid presentation out there. And then expect feedback, have that podium so that we get the feedback from the people.
Yep.
And Carrie, to your point, it's not only the feedback, but the reason for that feedback, right? We got this feedback, what was the citizen's voice, what was the reason behind that? You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So maybe at our next meeting, we could work on putting a presentation together.
Yeah, some scenarios for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Anything else you want to bring up today on this?
I don't think so. There's a couple more documents that just go into more depth about the three main options, if y'all want to review them for your own knowledge. Joel, Chuck, missing you guys?
No, I think.
Anybody have any more questions before we sign off?
So just connecting some pieces of work that you're doing to some of the work that the elections group was doing, are you going to, as an output of your efforts, have all of the roles and responsibilities and all of the elements of the governing part of our document, or is it?
I think based on what we just talked about, I think the answer has to be yes. Because
Okay.
when we get into a community scenario, what about this, what about that? We kind of
Okay.
need to anticipate that.
Yeah.
All right.
But Greg, is the question, will the subcommittee bring that back, or will we bring suggestions and then the commission?
It'll be much like we just did through the
Yeah.
elections stuff. We'll probably have a period of time where we all look at it together, and
Yeah.
then there'll be some takeaway work that will happen
And then we
outside of
can,
this room.
then we can critique after that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It just keeps us moving closer to a final document.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay?
Well,
All right.
And we'll certainly bring, through the research that we do, our findings back, but not one of us is smart as all of us, so.
Well,
Right.
again,
Yeah.
start developing those FAQs that we could actually say, hey, this is the feedback,
Yeah.
these are the answers to that too.
Yeah.
And then that will grow too as we get the inputs from, the presentation. We may do one presentation. You may have to come back and do, based upon that, come back and do another presentation.
Yeah.
Where would we do this with the public? Or would we?
I would say right here.
Yeah, anything that we would do where we were interacting with the public, we would probably do in this forum, unless we anticipated that it was going to be a much bigger turnout and we needed a bigger venue to do that, and then we'd have to figure that out with the city staff.
And, I mean, I would have to think that our citizens, our constituents here would like to be involved in what we're doing.
Yeah,
So hopefully, this is not a big enough venue.
How do we
hopefully
solicit?
right.
how do we solicit that, or we just wait for people to show up?
Yeah, we would have to put a public announcement out about that activity taking place.
Yeah, could we put it at the fire station also on that?
Potentially,
On
yeah.
the board,
That
yeah.
might-
Library.
And the
That's a great
library,
idea,
yeah.
Water bill.
yep,
Yeah.
on the
If
website.
we need a larger venue, do we have opportunity for larger venues?
I think so. I think the church over here.
Yeah, Heritage Baptist, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we could work through the city staff to figure out where we could have, potentially have an activity like that.
Katrina, do you have any suggestions on that?
Just that you would need to do it as far in advance as possible. That newsletter is about a month early from when we send it in to when you guys see it.
Okay.
So it would, maybe if you could have a sense at your April 22nd meeting of when you would be ready for that,
Yeah.
then we can get the announcement out to allow proper notification.
Okay, we can
Okay.
meet between now and then we can discuss as a group, and then make a final edit and set a date.
Okay, perfect. So that'll be a topic for discussion at the April 22nd meeting.
But again, I don't want to rush this. I don't want to set a date and
Well,
hamstring ourselves.
I think this is more of an education and a community input than it is, this is what we recommend. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah. And I think any community meetings we have would be for their input.
Mhm.
Well, and two, that's just gonna be based when you come back to us what you have already.
Yeah, that's
And we
true.
go, okay, well, let's give you another
Yeah.
deal,
Good
okay,
point.
before we set, you know, like. Yeah, yeah, it would be, when we set the date, it will be determined by how much you have completed before the date's set. But we'll try to set a date then.
Okay. Anything else on the form of government? Is that it for tonight?
I would like to be clear or get an idea, if we go district, hey, what number, how many districts would we want to have for Haslet?
I think that's for our subcommittee to help make a recommendation based on the form of government that we land on.
Was 3 in the ballpark for,
It would be, I think it would be more than that.
okay, all
I
right.
think it would be more than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it depends on the form of government. If you have a strong city council, you might be more. If you have a weak city council, it might be less, but, yeah,
When
that's
we
for the
group,
form of government subcommittee to help make a recommendation.
We decide how to carve up those districts.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
that would be
definitely.
defined as part of the charter.
And you would base it on population and also what concerns those different neighborhoods have. That would be different than ours, you know, like, because Laterra,
We talked a lot about that.
Yeah, when we came up with, we just grouped by common interest and tried to get the same number of
Yeah.
houses in every district, just playing with it, we came up with 5. Every time we did it, it came up with 5, and you could group them where people had shared a similar concern. Like people along 156 may be worried about the highway, whereas someone in Sweetgrass may be worried about the warehouses, and they don't care about the highway because they never go that way.
So is there any state law that says that it has to be more quantitative rather than subjective?
I don't know if there was state law, but I know there was,
Because, you know, some of what you mentioned is very subjective, right? I perceive your concerns to be this, and you perceive them to be completely different, but yet we've divided that community.
Well, we tried, basically, we looked at just trying to create, because some of the wording in the charters says equal districts. They try to use roughly equal, or they use some vague terms relative in size. So you
By
try to-
population's
yeah,
easy.
Population's the
Yeah.
part where you have to you can end up with some meandering to try to generate a population that's similar, because it does require, you're not gonna get it exact, there's no way.
Rooftop acreage, something that's more
Rooftops is-
quantitative rather than.
Yeah, well, that's
And
kind of
really,
what
I
we
mean-
came up with.
we were just saying that in different neighborhoods, they have different interests. That's why everybody needs to be represented.
Right.
But when you divide it up, it's not divided by their interests, it's divided by population.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It just, how you message that's very important, right?
But
Well,
it didn't
yeah.
make sense to put the Meadows and and Sweetgrass in one, and then put Caraway and Hugh White in another.
Right.
Because just our perception was that those people may have wildly different concerns about the city based on their geography.
Yeah, just like Old Town and, you know,
Exactly.
one of the other newer subdivisions probably have very different interests. And-
Right, but drawing the lines out, we actually were able to use AI, and you can, all the new neighborhoods are platted, and that information is readily available online. You can see exactly how many houses are in each neighborhood. You can just assume a certain number of people and get a rough number on the district, but it's hard to get an actual number.
You're gonna wanna be careful with that too, because you're looking at Caraway and Brentwood and all that, or have a larger home, so you can have less population versus the Caraway or the Sweetgrass or the, Laterra.
Yeah, there's almost no exact science here.
There's,
You have to go by population, yes. You have to make sure it's an even population, however you divide it.
So, do we as a whole feel like we're gonna go district rather than at large?
once again, I think it determines on the
Yeah, I
type
don't
of
think we've
government.
decided. Yeah. We
All right.
just threw it out there and saying that this was in all of our stuff and it needs to be under all the,
And it was because we wanted to eliminate the concerns of having clusters of council from, one neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or-
Okay.
Or from, yeah.
So it's getting late. Let's just kind of move us along here. So the financial subcommittee was any work done on that one?
Yeah, we met one time, we did a lot, kind of like what the election committee did. We looked at the charters that we have here in the book, and we also looked at a bunch individually and brought in ideas that we had. And we went through, one that we actually really liked quite a bit was the Justin, the way that they talked about their finances. I think probably about 70 or 75% of what was in Justin's we thought was really good. And it's kind of nice because Mike Rhodes actually, what he does in his normal work is city finances. So having somebody with that expertise on the panel really kind of helped. But we have, right now, I think we're about a 75% solution, and we should have a printed draft for y'all to look at next meeting on the 22nd. But I think Stuart will be out of the country for like the next 3 weeks.
So when you get done with that section, do you believe that taxation would be a next good piece of work for that group to work on? Or do you think it should fall to a different group of individuals based on?
Well,
how
there was
that might
taxation in that section as well.
Okay.
But I mean, we have to go right into I think it would be a fitting just to go right into the next.
Okay, so that subcommittee will be taking care of the financial budget and taxation?
I think that would be reasonable.
Okay, perfect. That actually is fantastic that is part of that body of work, because that's something we need to really get focused on early too. Okay, let's see. So next agenda item is to discuss the home charter table of contents, and then potentially identify additional subcommittees. So I think we're already working, from my perspective anyways, we're already working on some of the big ones. The city council of powers and duties of officers, are you combining those two so that the powers and duties of all of the officers within the city government, you're defining all of that?
We hadn't really discussed that, but it seems like that would go together.
You can, yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's great. And then the role of the city administration, the city manager and the city secretary and all of that would be, so that's 3 big sections in the form of government.
So are you saying that's going to be included in their committee, form of government?
It sounds like that subcommittee is handling those 3 elements.
City council, the mayor, and city manager,
Yep.
that, or whatever form it is.
It makes sense to go together.
And then the finance subcommittee is taking care of the finance, the budget aspects, and the taxation aspects of the home charter. And then there's another one that's planning and building regulations. And that one has not been set up. And we need to be careful that we don't end up with 3 of our P&Z members on that one.
Question. So I wasn't looking at the document. Sorry. Are you saying that for form of government, you're also going to do Article 3 and Article 4
And 5.
and 5?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot, but it all ties together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we'll need to know
It-
for our elections then, what you, because what we were talking about will have, they'll connect.
Impact.
Yes,
Do
ma'am.
do you feel to complete that work, right now you only have 3 members on that subcommittee. We can put more on that subcommittee and not violate our quorum.
Right, what do you
So-
guys think?
Would it be
Who else is on there
beneficial?
with you?
Myself, Joel, and Chuck.
Okay.
I mean, let's, I don't know, we think.
I don't think we should overload.
It's probably pretty good right now.
I just want to make sure you're
Yeah.
equipped properly to do your work, and so it's an opportunity, if you don't
Yeah.
feel you need it, that you don't have to take it.
How about if we feel like we need help, we'll reach out?
Perfect. Okay, how about from the finance and taxation? Are you guys equipped with the right resources to do that work?
Yeah, Greg, real quick, I want to circle back. You mentioned city secretaries' roles and responsibilities. Is that part of what we're trying to determine in our form of government?
Well, that's defined by the state.
Yeah,
City secretary is.
yeah, maybe it's more the administration aspects of the appointment and the removal of some of those city staff members.
So we're just gonna, and I'm just trying to get clarity for our subcommittee, we're just gonna determine or come up with ideas or suggestions for our form of government.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the structure of city council, the city council qualifications, how to fill vacancies, city council meetings, how those are run, how do you deal with absenteeisms or resignations or open offices, limits on terms and things like that will roll over into the election subcommittee, and then what if any compensation. So all of that kind of stuff needs to be included in all
Can I
that.
ask a really, it's probably, I'll just say, it. Can we address something called decorum when we do this? What I mean by that, can we say, you're gonna address a certain way, you're gonna talk to each other a certain way, because that seems to be missing a lot in some of these meetings.
If you guys want to have decorum as an aspect of how city council meetings are run,
Absolutely.
Okay.
It
That's all
put-
you said.
yeah, again,
We briefly
you
discussed that.
can bring forward
and
whatever
our question
you
was-
you feel is the
Who enforces
best
it?
way for the city to be
Say
run.
again?
Our question was who enforces it? We were
No,
talking
that's
about
all,
that.
it's just having it on the books.
We need a sergeant at arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't have anybody. You'd be a very good sergeant at
I would
arms.
just like to have something on the books that says, this is what we expect. That we, as a group, we decide this, we'd like you guys to dress a certain way, talk to each other a certain way.
Yeah, we,
Please do.
All right, so I think those are the big ones. So next meeting, just moving on, discussing our next meeting, so that's April 22nd.
So did we set up another committee for any of these other?
I don't think so at this time.
Yeah.
Does anybody feel like there's another aspect of the home charter that we really need to get moving
Not right now.
on? Is anybody not assigned to one that they want to get involved in, a section?
Well, is what we just talked about under ethics and standards of conduct?
So that would be a committee, yeah. Decorum, so,
It could be in
yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be under that one.
Okay, so, yeah.
Article X.
So then
10.
we want to address it. So maybe we do, yeah. I do, like I said, it's just a personal thing for me. I just like to see it on the books. We don't have to
Well,
enforce it.
Yeah.
So do you want to?
Some of the home charters have a recall of officers section, and it talks all about the, how to deal with recalls and how to do the petitions, how to draw the next election, how ballots and all of that stuff. Does anybody want to get involved in something like that? Because that's a big part of our,
Yeah, that's what we talked about, that we have to come back on that because it's
Yeah.
a huge.
so do you want to
Section.
maintain, do you want to maintain moving that one forward, or do you want to have a separate subcommittee just to deal with that piece because it's so big?
what do y'all think? I mean, you think we could bring that into our committee, our subcommittee, I mean, if you
Yeah, we
like.
could, we could.
We could define it. It is a separate
And
section in our
do you want to bring
outline,
in
but
the ethics and standards of conduct into that too?
I think that almost needs its whole,
Its whole,
I mean, of course, it may not be that much, actually, it
well,
just may be a.
when you're
one-
talking about recall,
Yeah, that would be in that section, but it may just be one section
Yeah.
of sentences that says this is
Okay.
what we expect, and, but, once again, we talked about the problem with stating it is how do you enforce it?
It's in the,
But I'm looking at some of these other charters and everything too, and I'm seeing where the initiative, referendum, and recall are all part of one.
They're their own separate section. They have a whole section that defines those three things. Yeah, I think that almost needs almost a separate subcommittee just because of the amount of wordsmithing that's involved in all those things. It's significant. When you look at Justin, for example, is a very detailed city charter. You look at theirs, it's a significant amount of stuff in just that section. And it's really bizarre because it almost never happens, but you're gonna have to devote a tremendous amount of time to define it in case it does.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because it's such a big section. So are there any individuals that would like to work on that section of recalls and initiative and referendums? Anybody ready to raise their hand for that element of the work? That's one. You got Patricia. And you could be on more than one subcommittee if you want to jump over lines. Okay, thank you, Carrie. All right, and anybody else want to jump in right now? Okay, we'll start there, and then if we need more people to get involved, then let's talk about that at the April 22nd meeting. Sound good? Okay.
Okay, so Carrie and Tricia are going to do the initiative referendum and recall?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the name of the committee? I'm sorry.
The subcommittee for initiative and referendum and general provisions. I'm sorry, recall of officers and initiative and referendum, sorry about that, those two.
And it's gonna be Patricia and
Carrie.
Carrie, got it.
All right, so at the April 22nd meeting, we will review the updates from the Form of Government Subcommittee. We'll discuss the plans for a community outreach or a community workshop to gather feedback on the form of government administrator or manager, right? And then we may get some feedback on the new subcommittee, initiative and referendum and recall of officers, as well as an update from our finance subcommittee. Okay, so we'll do finance subcommittees. I would suggest we walk through all the updates kind of like we did with the election one. And again, I won't be here for that one because I'm going to be out of country. But you said you were going to be available to run that meeting?
I will, do you want me, yes. Do you want me to set the agenda up or do you submit it or are you going to set it up?
I can send it in so
Okay,
that it makes the public
Okay.
announcement.
All right,
Period.
great.
I will do that. I'll probably do it tomorrow, just so
Okay,
it's well in front of it.
Perfect. Yes, I
Okay,
will.
anything that anybody feels that we need to have on the agenda for our next meeting?
Just to say on the community outreach aspect, Marilyn, since you're running the next meeting, I'll be glad to step up and help with some of that. That is so critical for everybody in here to be prepared before we go external, so.
Okay,
we can talk
well,
about that
I mean,
next week. I'm
okay,
happy to
so
help.
do we need a committee for community outreach? Do we need a community outreach committee?
So we actually had a few things in our bylaws that it said that I had to be there. And I don't know if it said who else had to be there, but I know I do.
It seems like it would be good if we had somebody that, we had a subcommittee for that.
I mean, my point is not to be Mr. Analytical here, even though I'm a scientist by education. There's a lot of work
Well,
that needs to be done before we go external.
And so I think you should head that subcommittee.
I'll be happy to help.
Okay, but does somebody else you want to?
I'll work with Marty on that.
Okay.
And what's the specific?
Community outreach.
Okay.
So we have a new subcommittee,
Sign me up,
Katrina,
Coach.
community outreach,
Okay.
and Marty
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Ron.
And we'll make sure that Greg is properly prepared before we go external.
So you're going to be the public speaker for and I'll facilitate?
I'll help you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so the committee members are
I'll help you.
I don't think you know what you just signed up for.
I'm okay with it.
And are you going to be on the next agenda then to just share?
Ron.
Okay.
My job is to help make him look good.
It's our body of work. I don't know. I am.
Your job is to make sure this passes with the voters.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah, our goal should be to have a well-informed electorate, okay? That they know why we're making these recommendations. Not that we're just, this is what you're going to see, but this is why we believe what's best. And they might tell us something completely different than what we think is best, and we need to consider that.
Right.
So, be prepared. We don't have to show emotions or, react to anybody's statement. In fact, it's probably best you don't respond or react, but listen, be a good listener, and then we can have that dialogue between
Well,
us.
and I also want to clarify, and I want this out there. I don't think anybody on this committee or this commission knows which direction. I don't think, nobody knows what you want, really. If you were to ask me, I go, I don't really know what my opinion is on what type of government we should have.
Right,
And I
think you
don't,
have to wait.
Yet.
I'm not going to speak for everybody else, but I'm speaking for myself. I have no idea until all of this is presented, until we hear from everybody.
Yep.
So I don't have any,
Yeah, I've had my
Preference.
thoughts and they've changed tonight.
And Mr.
change your
Chairman,
thought on districts.
Well, on some of the things I've rethought some of
and Mr. Chairman, to your point about whether it's a weak mayor, strong mayor, where it interfaces with the council, how many districts, if we go external properly like we should with our eyes and ears open, we hopefully are gonna get some feedback from different areas of the city of Haslet, whether they become districts or not. And that's gonna be very important intelligence for us
Right.
to get the heartbeat of really what are these people thinking?
Right.
What are our citizens thinking? Why are they thinking about it? And where do they want things to go? And I think to your point, that's gonna give us very valuable input.
The question
And can I-
set that we go to that with is
Yeah.
very important, so that it
And-
doesn't become just a free-for-all.
I might make this suggestion, Marty, since you're the community outreach, you and Ron, that, we might be able to do some in like the communities, like the clubhouses at the different communities, instead of maybe here, and go out into the neighborhoods and have them. That way you probably get more input. If you say on this date, we're gonna have a meeting at Watercress, well, what people from Watercress are gonna show up?
It's a great opportunity to get feedback from, and some help from different HOAs.
And once again, very precise targeting of what's going to be topic, what's going to be presented, so that it just doesn't turn into a complaint session from the residents.
Yep.
Hey, Greg, do those need to be recorded, or you have it where you don't have the amount of people that is needed?
Will there be a quorum present?
So our bylaws,
Can-
our bylaws do not say how many individuals from this commission need to be in attendance. It says I need to be, thank you. And it says, nothing regarding the number of people from our commission.
You're gonna want to have some type of recording
Yeah.
or something, and I was gonna maybe ask you on the aspect, what we use at Lockheed Martin, there's a couple things we use out there that actually record things and actually present it back into a minute format. And I don't know what access we have from a city of what we could use. There's one out there, I think, called JC. There's another one out there called Time, I think. Yeah, but there's things out there that you could actually even take a phone and actually record it, and it actually turns it back into minutes.
If we do this where it's only a few of us here, then the commissioners can sit up there and then we can have the public in here and probably use the recording function in this room. Would be my guess. But we couldn't have all 15 of us up there, obviously.
Could it be defined as a workshop with the community?
Absolutely, that's what it would be.
And then you could have a quorum and it wouldn't be an issue, is that correct?
Correct. But we don't need a quorum present for that either.
No, I'm just saying, but if people from this commission wanted to
We're out here in the room as well, yeah.
But will it fall under the Open Meetings Act?
It could, and then we would have to post it and, follow all the right procedures for that. Yep. if we feel like, the commissioners who weren't sitting up there, we're gonna be sitting out here, then we would wanna post it appropriately and, do all the right things for that.
Well, we probably all don't have to be at all, these community outreach things.
Yeah.
You know.
Unless you want to express your thoughts.
I just know at this point, other than outside this room, the city does not have AV equipment that can go outside this room.
Yeah, okay. No, thank you.
If something that's needed, it's something that's gonna need to be brought to the city to look at.
Yeah, thank you for keeping us informed of that. Appreciate that. Okay, anything else for our April 22nd meeting? Do you want to keep with the 7 o'clock start time? Do you want to start earlier? 6:30?
And we keep
Sounds
7?
good.
7 o'clock it is. Okay. And then next meeting after that is the first Wednesday of May, I believe.
First, I thought you were gonna go with the fourth Wednesday.
The fourth Wednesday. And what's that date for the next one then?
Fourth Wednesday of April, the 29th?
No, he
Yeah,
said
but
May.
see-
He said May.
But, yeah, okay. Never mind, we're meeting on the 22nd.
27th of May.
Okay. Ooh, that's a long time.
And we're gonna get,
If-
we're gonna get into summer.
27th.
If-
27th of
if-
May.
If you decide you want to have another meeting at the April 22nd, schedule it based on availability of the room and then we'll
Katrina,
determine.
what
you
does
know,
the
who
27th
chairs
look
the
like?
meeting.
Katrina, I will not be here the fourth Wednesday in June.
Okay, what was your question, Bill?
What does the 27th of May look like, the fourth Wednesday in May?
Well, we have kind of held that date for this committee, the fourth Wednesday, so you are clear on that, starting.
Yeah, that's already our date.
Okay.
Yeah, it's whether you want something between the 22nd of April and 27th of May.
Well, I think we should decide that at the next meeting.
And you can decide that at the next meeting. And you'll have to verify availability of the room, and then if we need to make sure we have proper posting for the meeting too.
Because right now, April 22nd puts you on that schedule that you guys have discussed for the fourth.
Yeah, we could tentatively pick a date. We can always cancel the meeting if you want. If you want to pick a date earlier in May for another meeting, and if we cancel it, we cancel it. But would that be okay from a posting standpoint, Katrina?
Yes, but I'm gonna try to check the calendar as you guys talk and make sure that it's,
Okay.
available.
Like the 13th?
I show a park board meeting on the 13th.
Yeah, the second Wednesday is never available.
Okay.
Park board,
The 6th?
What hours do they meet?
they meet at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 to whatever.
How long do their meetings typically last?
A couple hours.
Yeah, they're at least a couple hours.
What about
Really?
May the 6th?
May the 6th, there is nothing scheduled at this time.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Wednesday.
The first Wednesday.
That's the first Wednesday.
Then let's,
2 weeks after your,
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
close.
okay, well, let's go ahead and put it on the calendar. If we cancel it because we don't have anything new to discuss, you can make that
Yeah, we
determination.
can determine whether to cancel it.
at the
We can
April
determine
20th.
whether we cancel it on the 22nd. or
Perfect.
not.
And
Let's
that
go
again
ahead.
at 7 PM, same time?
Yes,
Okay?
so let's lock it in.
And are we keeping the 27th of May?
Yeah.
Yes.
22nd
Yes.
of April is the next one, and
Yep.
then yes,
So-
keeping 27th of May, right?
Yes.
Correct,
So we got 22 April, Mr. Chairman, 6 May, and 27 May, correct?
correct.
All right.
Okay. All right, and I think, let's see, agenda item 6A was discuss, consider an act to adopt content for the home charter document. I don't think we're at a point where we're ready to recommend any final language for the home charter document. That will be a standing agenda item, because as we do get things to a final format, I want us to be able to move that forward. So we'll see that on there. We may not take any action on it,
We just table
For a
that
while.
item, table that agenda item.
Yep. Okay, and I think we're at the point where we are adjourned.
Well, let me ask one thing on future agenda items.
Oh, I'm
Just to
sorry.
remind me one more time, since we're taking on this next, when is the deadline to be able to get it on the agenda?
Oh, you're welcome, yeah.
If we're gonna bring if we need to have something presentable or a draft form, what's the deadline for that?
Yeah, I would just say have whatever you can ready for the May 27th meeting or sooner. Yeah, that's a lot of work that you guys have in front of you.
Yeah.
And I would shoot for the May 27th date, and then if you have stuff to show at the 22nd April or the May 6th meeting to get feedback from the group, that would be great.
Okay, so, but if we have something that we want to actually provide as a PDF, when do we have to have it to you for the agenda?
A solid, week ahead.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, at a minimum, if you want copies, but we have to post that agenda the
Correct.
Wednesday before.
Yep.
And I can't get it at the last minute.
That's what I was
Yeah.
trying to verify.
So
I should probably tell you 2 weeks, but I realize that's tonight.
Yeah, I think this time I gave it to you the Tuesday of the week before our meeting, so, yeah, I think we just need to be very respectful of the work that she has to do to get that ready.
Understood.
Yep, thank you. All right, we are adjourned.
Cookies. Have a cookie on the way out.
I do, I'm gonna hand that
This
back.
conference is no longer being recorded.
I think that was.